And what it do? Have you recovered yet? Has your heart rate calmed down from watching that game last night? On to the round of 16 for the United States, 2-0 over Bosnia and Herzegovina, and there was drama. There was tense moments. There was great play, and the United States survives and advances. I'm your talking head, J.J. Buck. I got the master of everything soccer, Chris Wehan, with us, and the emotions of riding a wave of World Cup soccer, nothing like it. And whew, what's it like for you watching these games? As a fan, just as a former player of, being a fan, I think that sometimes might get lost when you, whether it's a journalist perspective or being a player. Now that you're doing a lot of coaching and technical stuff, what's it like to kind of be a fan again? Of watching these games.
Yeah, I think that's the best. I think that's the best thing about this World Cup is just being a fan. Sometimes in some of the work that I do, you're watching games so much from the lens of like, what's the formation? What's the identity of the team? Where are players playing? Like, what are the is this player playing well? Is he connecting his passes? Like all these things. And it's nice to be honest, I really did hone into the game last night as a fan. I watched the game with some neighbors of ours. The kids were running around, some beers were had. And it was great to just be a fan and enjoy the game. And what a gutsy win. What a big performance. Can't wait to dive into it. JJ, give me your thoughts. Give me your initial perception going into the game. Give me your pregame. Did you have nerves going into this one, JJ?
I was a little nervous. I was excited. The build up when you're watching the other knockout games and just the energy around it, and knowing that the United States were favorites and there was an expectation to win this game. But watching Germany and Paraguay and watching how tight some of these games have been, you understand that it's not going to be easy. There is nothing easy about this tournament when you get to the knockout stage. And even in a round of 32, an expanded competition, you're watching some of these third place teams play really good soccer. And so going in, there's a fan standpoint where I'm like, this is a great opportunity. This is a good matchup against Bosnia and Herzegovina, but ... You knew how tough it was going to be. And honestly, I had a lot of people talking to me about it throughout the day and doing our radio show and everything. And I initially kind of pegged it 2-1. I think with the size, the set piece, could Bosnia and Herzegovina get one on them, and then the United States with their talent pull away. So seeing the clean sheet was awesome, especially playing 30 minutes, a man down in the second half. But I think what started for me, the standout, is Matt Freese and his early plays in the game, his adjustment on that corner to make the save. I think that set a tone for the United States that this is another person you can rely on. We saw in the group stage them win a game without Pulisic. We saw yesterday the goalkeeper have to step up and make plays. And I think we're seeing now every level of this team has had a moment so far in the World Cup.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, certainly if we can rely on our goalkeeper at times, we're going to need to rely on our goalkeeper from this stage forward. Absolutely. And certainly our back line, I think, did another tremendous job. But we have to have players step up. And what a great opportunity. I know we'll go into the red card, but what a great opportunity it is for someone to step up. And that's how we're going to win tournaments. I think, we don't have the luxury of having a Messi or a Cristiano Ronaldo or an Mbappe. But, collectively, if we can get goals from our midfielders, our strikers, and have big moments from our goalkeeper, then, all the possibility is in front of us. And I like our chances really against anyone at this point.
Well, Flo Balogun has been a menace, has been a creator. And, he had the big chances in the first half, finally scored in a 45th minute. And the red card happened, the controversy around the call. There's been no one that I've listened to whether it's soccer people, refs, fans, whatever country it is, that agrees with the call. And I think it's a misuse of VAR when you slow it down and look at it frame by frame versus what actually happened. But for Balogun, I want to get your thoughts because he is a fantastic talent. And he can play on the ball, he can play off the ball. And I don't think this plays into it, but he's a guy that goes down a lot. He looks for contact. He tries to put himself in those situations. And I don't think that was the case in this, but his play style overall, what does that bring to the field? Just kind of the energy outside of just what he does on the ball.
Yeah, I think he's certainly a player that, at this point, if the ball falls to him, as it did yesterday, that he's going to score. He has the ability. He's that kind of threat where don't give him a sniff at goal. They're going to hurt you. He's that kind of striker at the moment. But man, I think from him, like I've been saying this to everyone, we really defend from the front back at this point. Pochettino's got everyone committed to the style of play and everyone's bought in, and no one thinks that they are good enough not to defend. Everyone is putting in that shift, and Balogun is displaying that. He's pressing, he's dropping in, he's putting challenges in midfield, and he's committed to the style of play that Pochettino wants us to play. And I think, it's just such an unfortunate situation. I've even seen reports today that, I don't know whether it's made up or not. I haven't done my homework. I'm just hearing things about, potential, like people are diving into the referee and a bit of his background. And I agree with you. It's just such an unfortunate use of VAR. Like, how do we go to VAR and with, I'm sure there's 3 people in that room and then the center ref, like, how are we? I think the problem that I have with referees at times, whether it's at the youth game or at the senior level, it's the hardest job. It's such a difficult job. And I think sometimes and this is even something that we can talk about with coaches, is that I think sometimes coaches have a disconnect of what is actually going on with the player, with the person on the field in those moments. Very similar to the referee. Like, he's not, there's no part of Balogun that's like, eyes the defender, removes his eye from the ball and goes studs up. Like, he catches the guy. It's an unfortunate situation. The guys come together. He's knocked off balance. For me, it's a bad foul. It looks ugly when you slow it down. You look at the guy's ankle. It looks terrible. No one is going to feel good coming out of that challenge. But to deem it a red card, like, there was no intent behind it. And that's just the hardest part, that I think, when these guys, they don't know how to put themselves in the situation, they slow it down, they watch replay. Oh, he's got his cleat rolling down the back of the guy's ankle, and his ankle looks like it could have broken. Oh, it was a dangerous play. All right. But come on. It's just, to me, it's there's so many question marks. And I think VAR did such a poor job. How is nobody else sitting in that room saying, like, it looks bad, but to me, it's a yellow card at best. I know they can give yellow cards at this point going to VAR. So, and look, I wrote this on Instagram. If you know me, you know how much I love Messi. And in game 1 for Argentina, if we're not going to VAR and Messi's not getting a yellow card for that challenge, which was clearly intentional, like, the ball is gone. He's gone. He knows he's not getting to the ball. He puts his stud down the back of the guy's leg, almost identical. And then Balogun gets a red card. It's like, there's so many question marks at that point.
Yeah, and just looking at the play too, it was 2 players playing for a ball. Yeah, there was a challenge in there, but I am with you on having to take into account what was happening. Like, he wasn't going in studs up on a late challenge. It was 2 players battling, and we all watching a game, whether you're a ref or not, know the difference in that situation. That's what shocked me. But when I saw it slowed down and the shot they showed of him just standing on the ankle of the Bosnia and Herzegovina player, my heart dropped, because I just knew in that moment, I'm like, they're going to look at that screenshot and it's going to be against the United States. And it's frustrating, but it's how to respond. And for the United States coming out of that moment, they're able to maintain their shape and also get forward at the right times. And ultimately, with the defense that they put in, and what you were talking about is the mentality. And I think that mentality of the willingness to press, with the full 11 on the field, came into play down to 10 men. It's because they were still being aggressive. They were holding their lines, but they were stepping to the ball. And as a novice, that is something that I think is missing from when teams are trying to defend. And I'm just going right back to the Ivory Coast Norway game earlier this week. Watching that game, Ivory Coast up, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. To me, there's a difference of holding your lines, but doing that and not defending. And Ivory Coast was never stepping to the ball, just letting crosses come in. And eventually, what happens? They get a ball inside, it rolls to the foot of Holland, and they score. I like that the United States was still stepping to the ball and being aggressive, because ultimately it led to some breakouts and what would turn in to getting that free kick opportunity.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think you go down a man, like I think it's the wrong thing to do, and I've experienced this at times, is everyone looks to the coach and is like, what do we do? Like that stuff should be prepared ahead of time. Like, hey, if we go down a man, like everyone's still got to defend. We get our lines compact, but when we have the ball, like let's take care of the ball, get around the ball, like still want to get on the ball, still want to attack. You saw that from Pulisic. You saw that from Tillman. Dest, he's high up the field, when he draws the foul. Like we're still getting numbers forward. We're still trying to play our identity. And I think that's why we were able to succeed. And I really early after the red card, I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, like where you're looking at the clock, like counting the seconds, waiting for this game to finish. You felt confident, not comfortable, but you felt confident in their ability to hold on. I think because we were still staying true to our identity, still stepping out and pressing. And for me, like if you're going to sit and defend a goal, like you said, so deep in your half where no one's really pressing the center backs, you can get compact and make it difficult for teams to break you. But if you're just taking crosses and shots from distance and, the ball's getting in the box over and over and over, like chances are that dam's going to break at some point. I think that is absolutely the wrong way to play the game. And I felt like we did a good job by sticking to our identity and still letting our attacking players, be who they are and get on the ball.
And, speaking of that pressing, I thought that's what opened things up at the end of the first half. A turnover created an opportunity. Now it ended up being offside on that first one, but that came from the press. And whether it was Balogun or Dest, Tillman, Weston McKennie, those guys closing down that space and creating the turnover, and that mentality carried over to when they needed it, being a man down. And I thought for Bosnia and Herzegovina, that was exactly what they didn't want to see, because obviously we touched on it. They were dangerous in set piece opportunities. They were dangerous when they get players in the box because they were big and they know what to do. I think that pressing style just took Bosnia out of what they wanted to do. And even the opportunities that came late in that second half for them, even though some got close, you mentioned they were from distance.
Yeah.
So the United States does a good job at not letting them get inside that box. I think, I know Dzeko went off with an injury, but still you have big strikers up top, and they kept everything outside the 18-yard box for the most part, even down a man.
Yeah, it was a really professional performance, I think, from start to finish. It wasn't necessarily as pretty. I don't think there were as many chances created as some people like, but there's so much that goes into it at this point. You see it in some of these games. Like there's teams are a little bit in their shell at first. They don't want to expose themselves because you go down a goal and it's nervous times in a knockout round. You get scored on early, or you just see a little bit different energy. And at the same point, this is game number 4 in a short span of time. They've been together for probably almost 3 to 4 weeks at this point. There's a lot that goes into it. in terms of, and I think that's why you're seeing some of these results where you're like, man, like these teams look flat. These players are going through a lot of conditions. Definitely, like I've played a midday game in that exact stadium, and it is hard. Like that sun, I know, was like beaten down on the field. It's kind of dry. It sucks the air out of you a little bit. And I think you saw that in moments of the match. And I think so. There's so much that goes into these games now at this point in the tournament. And I think in Seattle, I'm not sure the game time, but it'll hopefully be a little bit cooler. And we're going to see a different performance. But I think moving on from the red card and whatever it was, man, what an opportunity it is for someone to step up and be like, man, whether it's Pepe or Wright or both of them or some type of change in formation or whoever it's going to be, like what an opportunity is for them to step in and embrace it and be like, man, like now's my chance to make a name for myself. I may not have gotten as many minutes or any chances, but now like you have a chance to put your name in history and help this team advance to the Final Eight.
Yeah, the Monday night in Seattle, it's Belgium and the United States. And before we dive into some quick hits on that game, you've stood over a lot of free kicks in your career, and you've been successful at it. And Malik Tillman, it's not just his play on when the ball's live; he has brought something that we haven't seen in a while, and that is a dangerous set piece taker. But just take me through the mentality when you're standing over the ball and you're analyzing wall, where the keeper is, distance, everything that goes into a free kick.
Yeah, from that position, I think right away you know exactly where you're going in terms of where you're trying to place the ball. Your best chance is going to be over the wall to the goalkeeper's right side, goalkeeper's far post, your near post, just based on the way he sets his wall up. And yeah, I think the hardest part is that you have to get it up over the wall, but within that short distance, because they were so close to the 18, to be able to get that ball underneath the crossbar. And his technique was so unique where he really opened up his foot. It was like when he struck the ball, it was like his foot stayed like that. So his foot stayed square to the goal while it was still moving this way. So there was like just a slight bend, but really there was mostly top spin. And that's why his precision to get over the wall, and then it was dropping so fast. And I think that's why the goalkeeper had such a hard time. I think, yeah, there's argument. Maybe the goalkeeper could have done a little better, but when, most of the time, I think a goalkeeper is expecting to save that ball higher, but his technique in being able to get that ball to drop so quick, because it barely cleared the wall and then it was immediately dropping. I think that's why it made it difficult for the goalkeeper to save that one. But yeah, it's so good to see that we have options, like we have threats and, off corners, the run of play. We have a great striker. Hopefully we can get him back. Hopefully we can play another day and get Balogun back. But yeah, we can score set pieces. We're dangerous. We have a little bit of swagger to us all across the board, and it's so cool to see.
There's no doubt. And man, just seeing that goal, it was one of the biggest goals in U.S. men's national team history. Yeah, they were up 1-0, but being down a man, the pressure that you knew was still coming, even in the final 8+ minutes that was left in that contest, to finish like that. That's stuff that we talk about the greatest doing. Messi stepping up, taking a free kick like that, or someone else. We saw it earlier today, Harry Kane stepping up with the brace for his country. That is moments that are legendary. And Malik Tillman has one of those moments now for the United States. And I think they're going in with confidence, with swagger. But I think Belgium woke up, man, because Belgium was down and out. And they got to 9. The ref was about ready to hit a 10 count on them. And they scored 2 late goals, get that penalty by Tillmans. And I think they're going to be coming in just like pants on fire, because they have not played well this tournament. But I do think those 5 minutes changed for Belgium, because we're talking about they took De Bruyne off early. KDB wasn't in there for a lot of that. Lukaku coming in and changing things. Tillman's just yes, the United States is confident, but I think Belgium is going to try to throw haymakers early on Monday.
Yeah, they are. Look, they've been a country, I think, that's been up against it for a number of years. They obviously went through their, towards the end of their quote unquote golden era, but they're always a country that produces top talent. They got players, yes, KDB, maybe he's past his time, maybe he's past his prime, but always a threat, and there's just, we're now facing countries, I think, where they have dangerous players all over the pitch. You got Doku out wide, you got Kevin De Bruyne up the middle, Lukaku's coming off the bench, Tielemans, obviously, he's in form, 2 goals against Senegal. Yeah, it's gonna take our best stuff at this point. I mean, it's we know that we have, in my opinion, on any given day, we have the ability, I think, to match Belgium and get the best of them. But it's going to be it's getting close to putting together a perfect performance. I think if we're looking at these games, back maybe in 2014 when we play Belgium, I think we're hoping to have our best stuff and hoping that they aren't that good on the day. And now I think we are just having to worry about ourselves in the sense of, like, of course we know who their players are and that we have to match them and take them with a ton of respect. But if we play within our identity and we produce our best stuff, I think we can beat anyone on any given day.
You mentioned the opportunity that is going to be for someone to step in the starting lineup, and it's probably going to be Pepe, just based on what we've seen him. In fact, he's been the sub off the bench, kind of like for like with Balogun throughout this tournament. I think it would be too harsh to fully judge him or really anyone else on that Turkey game. Because I know there was a lot of people immediately after that game saying, he's not ready, he can't be this person. But what does he look like with Pulisic, Tillman, McKennie, and Dest in the buildup? To me, that gives me hope and an excitement of, okay, now that he has those guys feeding him the ball on a consistent basis, what would his opportunities look like in this game versus what we saw against Turkey?
Yeah, I think the game against Turkey was like, man, it's people don't understand, one, how hard it is to play the third game when you haven't played 2 games, or maybe you've played 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes here and there. And then it's, maybe the first time that group is getting a look under pressure. I'm sure they've played small side, or they've played 11s in training. They've played a friendly match, but for that group to be thrown into the World Cup and been like, go be successful, like, it's a lot easier said than done. So I think, yeah, don't write that game off, but he's going to look much different. I think, one, starting the game, if he can get settled into the game early, connect his passes, make a good run in behind, do something with successful to kind of get that confidence. Like, all right, I belong on the field. I can play. I can play at this speed. I can play at this level. I think that'll be in our favor. And then, of course, I think playing off of those guys, I thought Pepe looked fantastic against Senegal leading up to the World Cup. I just thought his movement off the ball was exceptional. Great assist into Pulisic early in the game. Like, I think he knows how to play with these players. I think he's got a ton of experience playing alongside Christian and some of these other players that we'll see in our starting lineup, Tillman, McKennie. But yeah, it's just going to be a matter of him getting comfortable as early as possible and doing what he does best. He's a fantastic player, and he has been for a long time, and he's playing in Europe for that reason. And hopefully, I hope that he lives up to the moment, because I know he has the capability to do so.
That would seem to be the easiest decision for Pochettino, is just the like for like. Don't change the way you've been playing. Don't change the formation. Just put him in for Balogun and move forward. How have you felt about Pulisic? What we've seen, of course, had the injury, kind of slowed him down a little bit. But he's the dude that had all the pressure on his shoulders. But I think now people are realizing, Balogun, McKennie, Tillman, like, there's players that can take that pressure off of him. But how do you feel he has performed in his minutes so far.
Yeah, I thought he's been fantastic. I think certainly against Paraguay he was flying. And I think the injury was a bit weird. I guess it was like he took a knock in training and then got hit in that same spot again. So um, yeah, I think the biggest thing that I have to go off of the is that he played 88 minutes yesterday. He played a lot of minutes. So I think if there was an issue physically with him, then we would have seen him come off a lot sooner. But I felt like he was running. Like I felt like he was like physically he looked good. Um, and I think Paraguay was fantastic performance yesterday. I thought he was good. Wasn't maybe at the level that we've seen him before. Um, but he's certainly one that, I think like the more other players are getting the attention and, the weight's kind of coming off him, then I think now is his time to step up. I think at times when it was kind of Christian having to do everything for us, that's a lot to carry, especially in the World Cup. But I think now that we have players that are producing all across the field and getting the attention and scoring goals, and there's a little bit of weight lifted off of him, and hopefully that allows him to just go and play with full of confidence. As long as he's feeling physically good, I think I'm expecting a big performance from him against Belgium.
So as we're seeing the round of 16 develop, I got to get your thoughts on Sunday, Mexico City, England and Mexico, because you played your college ball in altitude. You played for New Mexico United at altitude. And so you know what it's like training, playing your home games here. What is England in store for stepping into that altitude in Mexico?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more than just the altitude. I think it's man, those fans are, unreal. I know like just being in Mexico is going to be crazy for England. Certainly, they've seen those environments all across the world, across Europe. But I think, man, there's something different about Mexico. Like when the U.S. is playing, I'm at the grocery store. Yeah, like maybe you see like one person, wearing some U.S. gear. Man, when Mexico's playing, like there's like everyone is like representing, showing up, and you're seeing that from them. And I know that the Azteca is going to be bumping against England. I think it's going to be really tough for them. I think Roy Keane said the other day, like their record there over the last, maybe they haven't lost there for like 8 years or something. Like it's such a difficult place to go and play. It's a team that's in form, a team that is feeling confident, and they have the support of the country. I think at times when Mexico has been poor, it's because like no one was. They had a little bit of their fans weren't super comfortable and confident with them. And man, those fans are feeling great. And the Aztec is going to be such a crazy environment. It's definitely one in this next round. I mean, every game is one to watch at this point, but that is a game where you're like, wow, anything can happen, and it could be a massive result for Mexico.
Well, I
What
will
about you?
say,
What are
let's
your
pick.
thoughts, JJ?
Well, I'm with you. I think the fans and the altitude. We're talking about world class athletes, but it's different, man. We're at talking 7,000 feet here. No, I'm filming in Albuquerque right now. I know you're out in Cali. We're a mile high here, so right around 52, 5,300 feet. That air gets thinner the higher you go, and you get thin air. You get a team that's confident, a fan base that's wild. They're probably going to be outside your hotel for the entire night, playing music, lighting off fireworks like they were doing, as we saw before the Ecuador game, and just all in. So it's going to be wild in Mexico, and I like Mexico. I think you see there's some questions on the back end for England. When pretty much put Declan Rice in at fullback to fill in on the right side. I know they want to try to get a bunch of offensive players on the field because they're chasing that game and against the Congo, but with the way Mexico has played, Raul is a nice presence up top, but Quinones has been one of my favorite players this tournament,
Yeah.
and he's just a menace on the wing. So I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
they're in for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're definitely in for it, and it's cool to see stories like Quinones, Colombian and that never really got his chance with Colombia, and commits to Mexico, makes the switch, and he's like, they love him and they're like embracing him, and what a tournament he's having. He feels that love, and it's nice to be wanted, and yeah, I think there's a ton of question marks. Man, I always feel like that's the case with England. Like we know some of the best players in the world, but not always the best cohesiveness as a group. A little bit of lack of identity, a lack of what they're trying to accomplish, and that's going to be tough, especially if Mexico is coming down your throat. And like you said, at altitude, you can't breathe, and it's going to be a very tough test for them.
Well, I will say, you're talking about the vibe. I think it's gonna be crazy this weekend. It's July 4th. Happy birthday, America! 250 years. You're getting ready for a round of 16 game that more and more people are going to jump on board for. I think Monday is going to be awesome, and I think there's going to be a great build up this weekend, enjoying the other games, but getting ready for the United States. It's going to be electric. And I was picking up dinner last night for the fam, and the guy in front of me, it was getting a little close. He's like, "Come on, we got to get to kickoff," and I was like, "Hey, you're gonna go watch the game?" He's like, "Absolutely." I'm like, "All right, let's get these orders and let's go." So I think
Yeah,
people are buying in.
I love that. I love that. I did the same thing. I was like 5 p.m. kickoff. Had the pizza ready to go, so the neighbors could come over and everyone can get a slice of pizza. But I wasn't going to be. I told my wife, I said I wasn't going to be, cooking burgers or anything during the game. I'm going to be sitting down watching this game. So whatever we're doing, we better have it ready before 5 o'clock out here on the West Coast. So can't wait for Monday.
Monday, it's going to be awesome. Locked in. And as always, appreciate the time and the thoughts of Chris Wehan. Can't wait. We'll be back with you next week with another episode of Pitch Me Your Thoughts. For the goal scorer, I'm the talking head, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Pitch Me Your Thoughts.